Bro Diallo, taking out you times and you don't know how I did it. Well, I'm working on that. And when I do it, you won't know how it was done. Again, this is Bro Diallo's show. September 12th, the day after the 15th anniversary of the 9/11 attack. So let me start the show by stating that all lives matter. Just get over it. That's in the past. And all the other stuff they like to tell people of the world and people of this nation who've been victims of Western atrocities, capitalist atrocities. Where are the all lives matter people? Where were the people who say all lives matter when we talk about police injustice? Where were they at the memorial services, and why didn't they stand up and scream about the more than 1 million people, Iraqis, who've lost their lives, and the more than 5 million Iraqis who've been displaced? The uncounted number of Afghanis, because remember Colin Powell, he said that we don't count the dead in war. When we're at war, body counts are not relevant. It's about the objectives. Your hero, your black role model, Colin Powell. Why didn't these all lives people stand up and say, well, if we're going to read the names of the almost 3,000 who died in September 11th, don't we have to read the names of the Pakistanis in northern Pakistan who weren't even enveloped into these illegal atrocity called the War on Terror, but yet their territories were bombed? What about the victims of the Saudi regime that is funded, supported, and armed by the United States government, by the U.S. military, by U.S. private military contractors? What about the victims in Yemen? Where are the all lives matter people? If you can't bring up certain victims of atrocities without acknowledging all victims of atrocities, if we can't bring up victims of police atrocities without also having to speak about black on black crime, without also having to acknowledge that black people do commit crimes, then when you bring up the 9/11 victims, do we not also have to acknowledge that U.S. government does victimize other people, does bomb other people, especially in the Muslim world, especially in Africa, especially in Asia? The only place that the U.S. isn't dropping bombs, dispensing depleted uranium shells, engaged in surveillance and subversion is Antarctica. I think that's the only continent under the world that's not under the nuclear umbrella, as far as we know. The penguins are safe. If you can figure out a way to live in frigid, sub-zero temperatures year-round, maybe you can move to Antarctica. But, hey, not even Antarctica is spared capitalism and Western aggression because it's melting. So the penguins, the emperor penguins, don't even have any reprieve from the systems and institutions of Western domination, capitalism, and omnicide. So, I don't know. All lives matter. So on September 11th, I will officially join the All Lives Matter movement. But on September 12th, I renounce my membership into the All Lives Matter struggle, and I'm back to Black Lives Matter. And I'd like to add an addendum to the Black Lives Matter position, because I don't think it's international, or it's not international enough. I think the atrocities, ongoing atrocities in the Congo, the ongoing atrocities in South Sudan, the ongoing subversion of Haiti's sovereignty, the ongoing, throughout Latin America, Central America. We are on an anti-African planet. This whole planet, Bobby Wright said it in the 80s, and I repeat it as often as I can in the aughties and the teens, 20 teens, that anti-Africanism is the planet's only universal ideology. There is no other place where you can go to find and witness people who've never even had an opportunity to interact with African people. The only thing they know about Africans is what they've seen on television or the internet. But they hate us. We remember when Bill Cosby's son was shot on the side of the road like common street thug by an immigrant from Eastern Europe who had just migrated to this country. Now the conspiracy buffs say, you know, he was trying to buy NBC, he was somehow a threat to the status quo, which I've never known or heard of a black man who was more in favor of, more loving of the U.S. status quo than Bill Cosby, but for somehow we've constructed him and invented him. I mean, maybe he's a threat to inebriated white women, but the overall status quo of the United States. But anyway, they said he was going to buy NBC. And if Bill Cosby had succeeded in building a media empire, it's more likely than not that empire's propaganda will be aimed against black folks, not on our behalf against the system. But anyway, when Bill Cosby's son was murdered, it was by a man who had very little to no interactions with black people. He grew up in Eastern Europe, which has some of the smallest percentages of people of color on this. The white is the Caucasus Mountains. You know, it's cold and distant. But he, within a short time of moving to this country, had developed an anti-black ideology. And Camille Cosby, bless her heart, I mean, she is the modern era Miss Seeley. That woman, I don't know whether to look down on her or feel pity for her. I don't know. Is she his partner in crime or is she just a hapless victim? I don't know. Bless Camille Cosby heart. But Bill Cosby wrote an open letter or an article. I don't know what it could be called. It was so long ago, a couple of decades ago. But she said, America killed my son. She said the atmosphere of racism and anti-blackness that was created by the United States saturates the world. So I don't blame this individual racist because there's really no such thing as an individual racist. Racists are created, racists are groomed, racists are empowered and sustained by a system. So no white person, according to her thoughts, wakes up and says, well, I don't like black people. This is something that is groomed into them. This is something that is ingrained in the media. Even in our greatness, they disparage us. Even as we grab balls and chase balls and toss balls and we leap over tall buildings and win Olympic gold and bring pride to the nation, they still hate us. Even though we charge up San Juan Hill, we Buffalo Soldiers, and we go into the West to clear the West for manifest destiny. We're over there killing the Huns and killing the Nazis and killing the communists for this country. In segregated military, degraded military. And yet they still hate us. We can be elected president and take the baton from a fascist and run the baton harder and faster than the previous white fascists. We could be elected president and totally, fully embody and embrace the neocon Project for a New American Century agenda, where we can take the wars of Western aggression, the wars of American imperialism, and expand them to even more nations. And we could do that while having the world love and embrace me like I'm a super rock star. But yet they still hate you. I don't understand it. But it's not an individual thing. This is not an individual process. It's a system. And that's why we say that black folks can't be racist. Women can't be sexist, because when you're under systemic oppression, you can be hostile towards your oppressor. You can even misdirect your hostility about your oppression and direct it towards other people who are oppressed. But unless you control the means of production, I know we don't like to talk Marxist talk, but hey, once we overthrow their systems and institutions, then we can come at it another way. But until we get the reins of power, until we get institutional power, until black folks got nuclear subs and aircraft carriers and global positioning satellites used to do everything from survey and illegally spy on people to guide drones to bomb people. Until we get some of that, until we on that level, we can't really create systems and institutions of oppression. We can only do one of two things: submit to them or oppose them. And even if we oppose those systems in a reactionary way, I hate white. Even if we go that route, it's still not racism. It's reactionaryism, but it's not racism. So, but I mean, for some reason, white folks, well, maybe I have to stop saying white folks. Do I have to qualify by saying racist white folks? But, and coming in, I was going over some election stats. Because I've been trying to avoid talking about the election. You know, because I guess eventually, what is it? It's September, maybe in October. We'll reserve all particulars. Because I hate that. I hate listening to it. Hillary is a bold-faced liar. Trump is a cartoonish, fascist, bold-faced liar. The Democratic Party is a corporatist, fascist, lying party. The Republican Party, the Republican Party is so dysfunctional. I don't think there are many Nazis from like Hitler's inner circle. People like Goebbels and, you know, Klaus Barbie. There's people that wouldn't even be eligible for membership in the current Republican Party. But I mean, it's just so distasteful. American politics is just utterly distasteful. But then I'm still, even though I say that, and I understand that, I still say black people get in the game. I know that's the quote, Michael Eric Dyson. He says, you gotta get in the game. You gotta get, if you're not in the game, get in the game. I don't think, when I say get in the game, I'm saying use the different tactic, strategy, approach, methods, and seek different outcomes than Eric Dyson. Eric Dyson is an integrationist, which I am not. I'm saying, because here's the thing. A lot of you militants, I don't vote, and you feel so powerful that you don't vote. And I don't really know how you think. And not saying that I'm trying to convince you to vote. I fully respect the no voters. You got other things you can do. But, I mean, like, I don't know what you would do. In the 5 minutes you save, 10, 15, let's say 20 minutes you save from not voting. What do y'all do with that extra 20 minutes? You're not opening businesses in the community. You're not creating, building revolutionary institutions. I mean, I don't know. What do y'all got 20 extra minutes that we voting Negroes ain't got. Let me know what y'all do with them. Maybe I'll stop using my 10, 15, 5 minutes to vote and go do what y'all do with that extra time. But it's really not about the time, right? It's about the psychological impact. You really think, yeah, I'm not voting in a system that for 200 years has worked diligently to prevent me from voting. Ha, take that, oppressor. I don't know. But anyway, if you're going to say I'm not voting because it's corrupt, and I agree, the system is corrupt. I agree, you're not going to change the system by voting. I agree with that. But also, the economy is corrupt. And you're not going to change capitalism by opening businesses or buying or saving money or even buying property. So how do you, a lot of the same black nationalists that say don't vote are the same ones that say give me money for schools, support black businesses, go to black banks, and they say, wait a minute. If something's corrupt and something being corrupt is enough of a motivation not to engage it, then how do you justify I'm going to step outside of or shun U.S. politics, U.S. party politics? I'm going to shun public policy and policy formation. I'm going to completely shun these bureaucracies and the political apparatus of the state. But I'm going to fully embrace the economy. The economy is more corrupt than the political system. In fact, the economy is the key source of corruption for the political system. Campaign finance. So I don't think you're truly legitimate if you're telling black folks don't engage the political system. But you also have to say, and by the way, leave your home, strip off your clothes, and go live under a rock somewhere. So what I say is what Malcolm said, is what Garvey said. But Elijah Muhammad didn't say it. But Malcolm eventually came to the conclusion that we have to use our vote as a weapon. We have to use everything within our talents because we're subject to the system. We're subject to the economy. And we have to think strategically. One thing we can definitely do, even though you can't liberate yourself with the vote, you can influence public policy. And we know that the U.S. government and private institutions aggressively monitor voter participation, voter engagement, voter awareness, and voter competence. And they determine what can we do based on this. What kind of response will we provoke if we initiate this policy, or we institute this reform, or we retract this reform, or we try to push forward this law or that policy. They watch that very closely, and it does influence their behavior. That's the thing. They watch. Black folks are the most studied population in the United States. If you're a grad student, if you are a PhD, and you're trying to get a research grant, and you're saying, I'm going to study black youth aggression, I'm going to study single mothers, I'm going to study inmates, ex-offenders, felons, anything you want to study for black folks, diabetes, I want to study foot amputations, diabetic comas, and diabetic necrosis, you will get all the money in the world. But if you step up and say, I want to look at white folks, what's up with y'all, man? What's up with these animal brothers and this persistent pathological insecurity? You know, right-wing, white nationalist terrorism. You're not going to get money to study white folks. And I'm not saying, I've been told this when I was in grad school, and I've been told this by so many PhDs, research scientists, administrators of universities have said, you don't get to study white folks. Now, if they're going to look at white folks, then they're going to do that in the Pentagon, they're going to do that in the CDC, and it will be marked quadruple hyper classified. Like a level that even Obama probably can't read those files. You know, because you can't look at the elite. You know, you can't look at the master. You know, that's kind of like your children trying to tell you, you tell your child, look at your room, it's a mess. And then the child say, well, Mom, the kitchen, the dishes ain't done. What, are you going to get beat down? Or maybe you'll get time out. We got a lot of black progressive parents. Shout out to the black progressive modern parents who do time out. We've integrated parenting. So you might, you know, if you got an old school grandma like I, one of them heavy-handed, you're going to get smacked across the face. Because if your mother or your guardian is telling you what you done did wrong, and you try to flip it back and like, well, look at what you're doing wrong, pow! That's how power works. You know, this here's my house. So this here's their country. So they can say, oh, black on black violence. And you say, well, the United States has the largest U.S. military budget, and the number one export of the United States is small arms weapons. And the U.S. is facilitating genocidal regimes, oppressive regimes, and warfares. And right now, the United States is engaged in almost a dozen official and unofficial wars. So you trying to tell me about black violence when white folks, y'all do more violence and more sophisticated violence than what? Pow! This here's my house. I pay these bills. You don't tell me. You get yourself together. Do as I say. No, not as I do. Right. So that's the situation we're in. Infantilized. In fact, and I know I'm all over the place, but it's Monday morning. Y'all ain't listening. Y'all don't hear me though. And if you want less train of thought, and you want me to stop going down these rabbit holes, because most of y'all are going to be listening to this too. No, but let me not diss. I appreciate my live listeners. And you know who I love even more? Those who call in. 312-985-7834. I don't know if that's toll free, but who pays for calls anymore? With these little shackles, these digital shackles, cell phones. Hey, little digital shackles. That's what and maybe if we start calling them that. I mean, every time let me back it on up. Again, so we're in a do as I say, not as I do situation in this country, where the very people who will collapse the global economy 1,000 times over, every decade or so, the whole capitalist system collapses, and then who saves it? The Federal Reserve, the government. The government comes in to save capitalism, to bail out Wall Street, to bail out the auto industry, to give unnecessary grants and funding to the military-industrial complex, to Boeing, Bechtel, the biggest corporations in the world, that goes overseas to fight wars, to secure coltan for Microsoft, to secure starvation wages in the third world for Apple Corp. The same, the king will turn around and tell us, oh, you got food stamps. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're a drain on the system. Just hypocrisy abounds. But what's worse about all that? Black folks, we get in on the hustle. We get in on trying to tear each other down. Anyway, but I wanted to talk about September 11th because this is a significant date. I want to talk about the Salvador Allende and Augusta Pinochet. I want to talk about Pizza Tosh. And of course, 9/11. So let's get out our tinfoil hats because I guess we're going to have to descend into the conspiracy corner to talk about 9/11. And what's more important than 9/11, because that was a date that has come and gone. But there are repercussions from the Patriot Act to the global war on terror. We're going to talk about that, which is, I guess we have to. So let's take a brief break. I'm going to take the break early so I can at least cover everything. Let's talk about, I want to play something dealing with global conspiracies, government crimes. So this is one of my favorite spoken word pieces. And I hate when we call music and stuff peace. Can't we say it's a song or a poem? But I guess I'm not as hip as the rest of y'all. Let's listen to Gil Scott. I'll be back with you in a moment. Peace.